You know, as much as this game tends to make me think of the movie Independence Day, you gotta admit, if aliens from outer space really did attack us in this day and age, we would indeed be using fighter jets to shoot them down. Yeah, it sounds cliche, but I mean, come on, do you have any better ideas? I am so very not qualified to be talking about today's Ancient DOS game, but it happens to be the most requested game at the moment, so here you go. XCOM UFO Defense, also known as UFO Enemy Unknown, and some people just like to call it UFO, but that can get confusing since there's already another DOS game called UFO. Regardless of what you call it, many people consider this to be one of the best games ever made in the entire history of PC gaming. Now, having played it for my first time this week, I understand the reasoning. It has a ton of features, never plays the same way twice, a highly unique method for developing your global UFO tracking network, and hours upon hours of gameplay before you even get anywhere close to the end of the game. There's just one problem. It's a strategy game. A very challenging strategy game. And given my general inability at playing strategy games, this one's been obliterating me every time I try to get anywhere. And I happen to be playing on the lowest skill setting. So yeah, because I can't get more than a few hours in without getting massacred, there's certain aspects of the game I'm simply not going to be able to comment on. But despite all that, one thing I can safely say, given my game design experience, is that this game is extremely well designed. Save for a few minor things, but yeah, overall, this is a great game. I just really suck at it. In any case, let's get on with the game stats. XCOM was developed by Mythos Games and published by Microprose in 1994. It's a one-player strategy game with support for VGA 320 by 200 256 color graphics and multiple sound and music cards. As for its current release state, it's still commercial, but getting a copy is a piece of cake. Just head on over to the Steam store at www.steampowered.com and you can get a digital download for $5, or you can buy their XCOM Complete Pack, which includes the first 5 games in the series for $15. If you'd rather get a physical copy of the game, they're not hard to find, but they are kind of pricey, with the cheapest copy I could find being $20 just for the disc and $30 for the cheapest boxed copy. So, before I talk about the story, I think I should address something here. Many games and movies that take place in the future on our world try to come up with some kind of year to take place and that would make sense. It's just that some games and movies really don't set themselves far enough ahead. I mean, last week's game supposedly takes place 7 years from now. This week's game supposedly took place 12 years ago. Look, I know sometimes setting a date seems like an important thing. Heck, I've even done it with pixel ships. But really, you know what the best thing to do is? Instead of giving a year, just say, quote, sometime in the future. Boom, problem solved. Your game can now take place at any time. It doesn't suddenly feel dated because some arbitrary number came and went. In any case, the story for XCOM goes that reports of alien attacks and abductions have been on the rise across the world, and all the world governments, starting to fear that these reports may be legitimate, meet in Geneva, Switzerland to discuss the matter. They conclude that the best thing to do is create a secret paramilitary organization dubbed the Extraterrestrial Combat Unit, aka XCOM, to deal with the situation, and thus the game begins with the opening of the first XCOM base at the stroke of noon Greenwich Mean Time on January 1st, 1999, leaving this whole alien invasion ordeal in your capable hands. Presuming you're not me. Now, one thing I gotta say about this game before going any further is that despite all the things it does right, the user interface is not one of them. The UI has way too many buttons for its own good, and some of them aren't even labeled, opting for pictures instead, which don't make a lot of contextual sense until you get the hang of the game. It's actually not that bad on the Geoscape, but during a ground mission, that's when the UI gets pretty crazy. The Geoscape is the large global map you first see when starting the game and serves as your method for tracking UFOs as they wind up on your scanners. At the side of the screen is a huge array of buttons for sending out jets to perform interceptions, checking the status of your bases, checking up on your funding levels, and more. There's also a clock to indicate the exact date and time, and several buttons underneath to set how fast the game goes by. The shortest time unit you can set is 5-second intervals, which the game automatically defaults back to whenever important things happen, and many of the windows that pop up even have a special OK 5 seconds button to acknowledge the message and set the time rate back down so you can deal with these things. Now, dealing with the Geoscape is a multi-stage process. The first thing you gotta do with any new game is manage your base, and yeah, there's even more buttons here to worry about. The gist of it though is that this is where you'll spend most of your time managing the state of your base as an aircraft. You'll also be spending time here engaging in new research projects, building new equipment and facilities, even equipping your soldiers with new and better equipment when you can. Actually, the research system brings up my one and only major complaint about the game, in that it's incredibly selective about how much information it gives you. Most of the time, the game gives you plenty of numbers to work with, so that you have an idea of how things are going to progress, and this is common sense as far as strategy games are concerned. But then you have something like the research system here, and every item you can research doesn't actually tell you how long these research projects take per number of scientists, nor what you'll get out of the effort once they're finished. And true, some of them are pretty obvious, like if you capture a plasma rifle from a UFO and then research it, obviously you're going to learn how to use that plasma rifle and how to build more of them. But the game still isn't going to tell you how long that research is going to take, not even an estimate. But yeah, while the Geoscape system is rather interesting, it's only the minor half of the game. The major half is performing ground assaults using an isometric turn-based system. These assaults can occur in a huge variety of ways, either by finding a landed UFO, finding a UFO that's set up a ground base, forcing a UFO to crash land. Heck, you'll even have to deal with situations where aliens will start terrorizing a neighborhood, and you'll have to not only take them out as fast as humanly possible, but try to prevent as many civilian casualties as you can in the process. Now, if you thought the Geoscape UIs were intimidating, just take a gander at this one. I still don't know what every button does on this interface, but I have managed to figure out most of them at least. But yeah, this is the meat of the game right here, and for every 10 minutes you spend in the Geoscape, you'll probably spend an hour fighting aliens on the ground. Actually, controlling this part of the game can be a little tricky since both the left and right mouse buttons do separate things, and it's extremely easy to make mistakes that will cost you turn units. And you'll note I've been intentionally avoiding going into specifics about the controls because I could write an essay on just how many things you could be doing. For instance, you can left-click on a unit to select it, you can move units by left-clicking where you want them to go, you can turn units by right-clicking where you want them to face, you prepare to fire your gun by left-clicking on it on the side, after which you left-click on what you want to shoot, or right-click to cancel shooting, plus you can't actually choose a different firing mode until you right-click first. Though the firing modes are interesting. Most weapons have at least two different ways they can be fired, though some have all three, those three being aim shots, snapshots, and auto shots. Aim shots have the highest accuracy but take the most turn units. Snapshots are much faster but less accurate, and auto shots fire 3 rounds instead of 1, the accuracy of which will depend on the weapon, but auto shots are usually the least accurate and take a few more turn units than snapshots. Granted, all of this really depends on the weapon being fired, the skill of the shooter, how close the target is, even how big the target is, as larger, closer targets are easier to hit. However, none of this is actually translated to the player, just the base values, which can make it confusing as to which kind of attack would be the most optimal one given the present situation. Now, each soldier you can control has a variety of stats going on, the 4 most important being turn units, energy, health, and morale. Turn units affect how many moves a soldier can make during a turn, though so does energy, and while your soldiers usually have enough energy each turn to do whatever they want, this isn't always the case. Health is a bit more interesting, since it's almost a completely useless stat early in the game, as most shots from enemies will kill your soldiers on a single hit, at least up until you finally get some armor going. What makes it more confusing too, though, is that soldiers can suffer fatal wounds, which, if not cured, will eventually kill the soldier after a number of turns. The last stat, morale, is the most annoying stat in the game. If a soldier's morale drops even just a little bit, there's a chance at the start of any turn that the soldier will either panic, dropping his weapon to the ground and running around uncontrollably, or go berserk and just shoot everything. The best way to keep morale high is to give each of your soldiers something to do every turn, and try not to let any of them get killed. In fact, killing an alien is a good way to boost morale. That actually leads into one thing that I'm glad this game does. Whenever you perform any moves at all during a ground assault, the instant a soldier can see an alien, the rest of their moves are interrupted and a flashing icon will show up to indicate that the soldier does indeed see something. This way you can immediately decide how to proceed rather than getting yourself shot down because you walked into a highly dangerous area. Another trick that's useful too is to not burn up all of your soldiers' turn units, as leftover turn units can be used to perform counterattacks on any aliens to get within visual range during their turns. You can even set your soldiers into crouching positions so that they're harder to hit and can't be seen beyond certain obstacles. However, this game gets ridiculously hard, ridiculously fast. During my very first attempt to get through an alien base, I was almost done. I'd spent an hour clearing everything out, still had about half of my squad intact, was getting ready to assault the final room, and then this pulse thing comes right through the door, explodes, and wipes out virtually everyone. Yeah, as if the mind control probes, which could see beyond solid walls, wasn't bad enough. The funny thing, though, is that because of how massive the explosions are in this game, it's often better to keep your soldiers as far apart from each other as possible, and even then it might not be enough. I've actually had my entire squad blasted right out of the ship they landed in with virtually no chance to scatter them. Yeah, I know I call this a great game, but the thing is, if you're not seriously into strategy games, this one's going to destroy you. But the really crazy thing is that minus the points in time when it felt like this game was cheating, I actually had fun playing it. So if a guy like me, who can barely play strategy games at all, can actually find some enjoyment out of a really hardcore strategy game like this one, then clearly the developers were doing something right. And that's why I can understand all the praise this game gets and how so many people like it. I'm not one of them, but hey, to each their own. Plus, despite my ineptitude, I do have a few tips. My first tip is to use some of your soldiers as scouts, since if one soldier can see an alien, all other soldiers can take aim at that alien, even if they normally couldn't see it themselves. Combining this with aim shots is a great way to snipe aliens before they can get the drop on you. Another big tip is to get some laser rifles researched as fast as humanly possible. Trust me, these things require far fewer turn units to perform aim shots with, have better accuracy for snapshots and auto shots, require no ammunition, and are twice as powerful as standard rifles. So get them as soon as you can. My final tip is something that didn't actually occur to me until I was through playing the game and went back to look up some stats. If you want to make some money on the side, just manufacture stuff and sell it. You actually get more money back for selling things manufactured by your engineers than it costs to make those things in the process. The motion scanner is probably your best bet for making money early on, given the man hours required to make one, how much it costs to make, and how much money you get back for selling them. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that can happen in this game that I didn't cover because I simply can't get far enough to encounter those things. You're just gonna have to trust me when I say that there's a lot more that can happen beyond what I've been able to show all of you. So if you're a big fan of strategy games in general, then this one is one you'll probably really enjoy. If you're not a strategy game fan though, then it's probably best to avoid this game because it will make you very dead. Dosbox settings are simple enough, you just have to set a fixed cycles count. The count you set though is mostly a matter of preference. If you download the game from Steam, then it will be set to 8,000 cycles by default, but I find this is a bit slow, so I prefer a setting of 20,000. Again, choose whichever setting you feel is the most comfortable. Also, the music in this game has some serious volume balancing issues, which I really couldn't come up with any solutions for. So you'll just have to get used to the fact that some of the music will be really quiet and some of it will be super loud. Anywho, that's all for today's episode of Ancient DOS Games. Next week for episode 99, we're going to take a look at what I think may be the only game in existence where you get to entice a goat into following you around. And if you think you know which game lets you do that, then make sure you send your guess to adg@pixelships.com and tune in next Saturday to check it out.